Have you maybe ever done a job that you didn't think you were really excelling at or you weren't really finding your footing? Well, just take a moment and think, maybe you're a striker. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot. Speak about me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, maybe like Mikel Merino, you've been a striker all along. Maybe that's what it is. You don't really fit in with what you're doing. You haven't found a place for yourself. Maybe the reason is you are a striker. And if you just played striker, you'd score goals, because that has worked a treat for Mikel Merino, who once again is among the goals. A brace in Prague. Arsenal 3 goals to the good, and I'll let you guess how many goals were scored against us. Well, we don't allow that, so obviously 0. 0-3, Arsenal win away in Prague. A busy week of Champions League football, highlighted by some big matchups like Real Madrid-Liverpool, so we will talk about that. I will tell you that over on the Patreon, we have a history pod. You need to get over there and listen to it, because as you know with podcasts, if you don't catch them when they first come out, they stop being interesting, right? So then you've missed them. You've lost the moment. And this one is about the 1890s at Arsenal, and I'm worried that if you don't listen to it soon, it's not going to be relevant anymore. So you're going to race over there and listen to Tim's History Pod. By the way, one of the things I like about Patreon, 2 things we've never really talked about. Well, we don't talk about enough. One, the pods go right into your regular pod player. So obviously for videos, you'll watch on the video platforms we use, but for the audio, it'll just go into your regular pod player. You don't have to go get it somewhere. The other thing is that there are collections. So if you're like, I wish I could see all the scouting videos you've done, or I wish I could just go for a long car ride and listen to the entire history of the Arsenal, you can click on the collection and just catch up on everything that's in that collection. So we have everything stored in collections over there, which is pretty cool. Instant reactions after every single game. Friday night, Clive will be out tomorrow, which is Clive with the Sancerre and me trying to trick him into saying silly stuff. And an instant reaction on Saturday. And we might even do one on Sunday from the Liverpool-Manchester City game that's coming up, because that's going to be a big one. And then we'll go back to our series on the Cup Winners' Cup victory during the international break and wrap that up. So lots coming. If you want to use code AVP50, you get it for a couple of quid and you can check it out and see what you think. Otherwise, we're just happy to have you here. Can't emphasize this enough. We absolutely just completely effing love you. Thank you for being here. It feels like a special season, and a big reason for me why it's special is because I get to be a part of this, and I get to be a part of the community that you make so special. So thank you for that. If you want to give us a 5-star review, it helps people find the pod, and that's important as people are increasingly vanishing off digital spaces and trying to find more analog spaces. We'll try to do more things in person, but if you give us a 5-star review, that helps. And if you don't want to give us a 5-star review and you have complaints, no problem. Just email them to Paul. Okay? So enough of that. Let's say hello to the people who will be saying the intelligent things about football while I ramble on about nonsense. One of them is Paul. Hello, Paz. And Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
I don't want to start with Arsenal. We talk about Arsenal all the time. There's nothing left to say about Arsenal. So let's start with the Champions League in general. Clive, a really interesting week of Champions League. Other than Chelsea, who just stink, so we know that. They couldn't beat mighty Karabakh. But you have Liverpool, I think, pounding Real Madrid pretty good. Manchester City rolling over Dortmund. Arsenal heavily rotated in second gear, easily able to blow plus Slavia Prague. Tottenham Hotspur, if you've heard of them. I didn't even realize that they did compete in European competitions, but apparently they do. And they won heavily despite being down to 10 men. Newcastle won. The Premier League flexing its muscle, Clive, while Barcelona failed to win against mighty Copenhagen. Bruges, which I am now dreading going to that game, playing the imperious, mighty Belgian side. But Clive, is one of your takeaways from this week just that the Premier League continues to flex its muscle and is looking very, very strong this week as a European powerhouse? And maybe, just maybe, City and Liverpool reminding people not to write them off just yet.
Yeah, it's I wish I'd known you were going to do this, Elliot, but I think it comes down to...
You never know what I'm going to do. That's the whole charm of this. Now, by charm, I mean the part you dread, but, carry on.
Yeah, so we're all adults here. We watch games of football, and we watched Spurs play Chelsea last weekend, and it wasn't the best game from a Spurs perspective, from an XG perspective. It was very, very... They had one attempt, maybe. And so we saw a team struggling to progress the ball. A few days later, they play one of the worst teams in the Champions League, and they get a fantastic moral lifting home win. And they should do versus Copenhagen. Look what Spurs have got. They've got a £1.2 billion stadium, probably the best training ground in the Premier League. That they're not, their revenues are not quite where we are, but not far off. So, and the Premier League revenues dwarf any other league in Europe. And so there comes a point in time when you're watching something and you're sitting down excited to watch a competition, and then you're asking yourself about the quality of the opposition. And watching Spurs is one thing versus Copenhagen, but watching Liverpool stormtroop over Real Madrid. And there was a period when Madrid were in that game, looked very sharp-footed, and you thought, okay, they're going to score soon, And then they literally didn't have the energy to stay with Liverpool. And the shots started to rain in. And it makes you think about the Premier League and its intensity and its physicality and where it's heading, and how it looks versus the rest of the big teams in Europe. Now, I caveat myself here by saying I watched PSG play Arsenal about this time last year, and we stormtrooped them. But come the moment, they won the league early. They got their players in January in Cavra, and they basically reshaped their team. And come the period of the season when winning time is when the medals are handed out, they were fit, they were rested, they were rotated, the league was done, and they went into those games full of energy, whereas a lot of the English teams, which they beat Villa, Liverpool and Arsenal, didn't have the energy to compete with them, and they won the tournament. So I'm not going to say it's over, worries me, it's over for the rest of Europe, but there does seem to be a gap, and there should be a gap, given the wages, given the coach quality, given the coaching standards, really. And given everything that we have from a resource perspective in our favour to attract the very best of the people in the industry. And it's starting to look like that to me. To be proven. But if Arsenal don't reach the same final of the Champions League, let's be honest, most people listening will be disappointed. Yeah. Disappointed if that's a semi-final. I've only been there 3 times in my history. I think I got that right, top of my head. So 3 times. But we expect to be back there again. And that's not just down to the fact we have got a very good team at the moment. It's down to the fact of the strength of the Premier League as a whole. And I'll play another thing, just to be scared of, Elliot. One last thing, sorry.
Always love an extra thing to be scared of. Hit me.
We are going to play a Premier League team in this tournament. It's coming. You know, and you can see it's going to come.
Tell me how it goes, because I'll be somewhere where they don't have internet.
when Liverpool beat us in 1-0, and me and Andrew are messaging offline, I sort of said, we're going back there, didn't you? And he went, oh, God. And he went, we're going back there. We're going back there. This is not over. You know, and you can see it happening, couldn't you?
Yeah, and for those who didn't keep up with the results, I'll just say Barcelona, again, drew 3-3 at Bruges, where I think they were fortunate to get a draw, candidly. Newcastle beat Athletic Club, is the one I mentioned, but Inter scraped past Kairat Almaty at home, which is an interesting one, obviously, not the result you would have expected. PSG, Bayern, obviously 2-1 to Bayern, down to 10 men. Terrible challenge from Diaz. He will not be available for the game against us, by the way. Juventus only managed a 1-1 draw at home to Sporting. So, not the most fearsome set of results for the giants of Europe. And I would simply say this to your point, Clive. I think this time of the season, the strength of the Premier League favors the Premier League teams. And what I mean by that is every week we play high intensity, high pressure, high level games. And when the Champions League rolls around, we are prepared to play at a level the opposition is not. But by the end of the season, the brutality of the Premier League fixture list and the brutality of the pace and intensity of the league winds up being a detriment, because you get rested and ready opposition in Europe versus worn out, sometimes injury depleted and fatigued Premier League teams. Stuff. How?
Yeah.
Wait, I don't know. I don't know how the brain works, but as I understand it, there's neurons and they fire, and then it connects to your mouth, and then the mouth makes sounds, and you shape your tongue, and the tongue makes words, and I don't totally understand.
Where I'm going.
To that point, Elliot, you can see you're going to start with this. You're going to get me going, right? To that point,
please go.
At the moment, we are trend setting at the moment in many ways. Some of the ways people don't like, people are not prepared to join that story, and we get blamed for actually executing on the set pieces, etc. Versus everybody else in Europe. They've all got towels as well. Do you know what I mean? And everyone's doing their thing. So basically, we're getting criticised for executing on that side of things. Also, there's another thing that we've done, which it's not unique, but it feels pretty unique at the moment, is how we've really focused on depth versus what Liverpool focused on, which is star quality. And I watch a lot of football matches now looking at players getting injured or worrying about them getting injured, not just our ones, but you can see things happening on the pitch, people walking off the pitch early, Lavia off the pitch early in this game. Hakimi kicked off the pitch in another game. And I'm just watching very good players not being able to play football. And so maybe the team with the biggest depth has got a chance. And that probably underpins a lot of our confidence. But even we're getting stretched. We've still got a centre mid up front. Do you see what I mean? And so that does worry me about where this game is going. You know my thoughts on this. We're just burning out. We're burning out players continuously, and it's a problem. And it's not just this is not just an Arsenal issue. This is look at PSG's injury record. I hear people shouting, "Well, they shouldn't have gone to that Club World Cup." Well, they had to go, right? And they got to the final, and it's now costing them, right? So we're not going to see a lovely PSG for a long time. So it is a problem.
I think Arsenal seem like a club that think about everything very deeply right now, and I think that reflects the philosophy of Mikel Arteta and his studiousness. And the sport at the highest level is increasingly becoming attritional. And if the sport will be increasingly attritional, then the strategy for success will increasingly shift from making sure you have a few elite players to making sure you have a rich squad filled with high-level players. There are clubs that have more elite players than us, more stars than us. But I don't know that there's a club that has more quality at the first level, second level, and third level positionally that we have. And so we may be the team that is set up for the modern configuration of football that is increasingly attritional. We've talked about this before. Every summer that Mikel's been here, Mikel's transfer strategy has reflected his attempt to redress the wrongs of the prior season. So when we got bullied by City, we added robustness in midfield. Last season was about injuries. This summer was about squad depth. And I think it's paying dividends. And this, Paul, to make this a little bit more about Arsenal, by the way, I just need to double click on something. When you say, how do you think of this stuff? Did you mean the genius that you came up with or the absolute utter nonsense that you're talking? Because
the genius.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that. But this is really interesting to see a heavily rotated Arsenal side in second gear really be able to comfortably see off European opposition. It's very encouraging, maybe too encouraging in the sense that it's giving us this false sense of security that if we never have any of our best players, we'll still be fine because we're just so good. But things I loved about this game, I loved Mikel having a tactical plan for a game 3 days after playing Burnley away. He's studied and understood Slavia Prague enough to have a tactical plan that involves bringing Saliba into midfield. Has a tactical plan around how he wants to attack Slavia Prague and their man-to-man system and their big physical players. So here's the lineup I'm going to use, and here's the tactical plan I'm going to use to address what they do. So we didn't just come into this game heavily rotated. We came into this game rotated with a plan for what they do. So just from a preparation standpoint, how impressed are you by our ability to rotate the squad, play on short rest, go away, and still look extremely prepared for the opposition?
Yeah, it's very impressive. It's very maybe calming is too strong word, but I think on the spectrum of what it of anxiety to calm, it's calming. I think when you've been making good decisions and they've been coming off you, and they have, even when the world doubted you earlier in the season, and I think Arteta, it's not out of line for him that he builds. He builds in terms of how he builds a team, how he builds a squad, how he's built his seasons. He's almost, as you talked about, he's learning. He hates weakness. He's built a team to strength, and now he's building a team from strength. I don't think it's true to say he left attack till the last minute, but you could see that even when we thought his defense was strong enough in windows or the midfield was strong enough, he would still add the pieces that filled in the weaknesses he saw. And he was patient that attack was something that for me is built on defense and midfield. And then he becomes more and more attacking. And I think when you make good decisions and now you have a firm structure, firm spine, and you might even say there's an analogy to how the team this season has progressed, you continue to make good decisions. You have the clarity of the winning helps, having made good decisions to put you in a situation to make continuing good decisions. It just feels, look, it won't be like this all the way through the season. We know over the Christmas period and into January, things can get a little rocky as you're running down on players. There's fatigue, etc., and then you kick into that period, and then there's the dreaded March-April period. So there is that kind of who can do well in chaos piece. But like, how about you get to March, April in good shape and position yourself well, and then you go into a maybe chaotic period from a pretty good structure. And it's very, very clear. Even the Granit Xhaka interview has a bit about how when Arteta joined the club, first day comes in and he's assembling the team, and where they're assembling, there's a whole bunch of chairs, but they're all untidy and a bit of a mess, probably a pretty good representation of how things were going at Arsenal at the time. And his first thing is, look, these chairs are a mess, they're untidy, they're chaotic. I want you guys to all straighten those out, put them in place, and that's what I want here at Arsenal. I want structure. I'm ad-libbing here, but like, it's kind of obvious what the message was. The message became very clear to the team. His clarity and his ability to convey, like, imagine you suddenly tidy something up. It's like that thing, first thing in the morning, tidy your bed, right? There is something that comes from that, something clarifying, simplifying. And I think his ability to simplify, back to your point, yes, he's making very good decisions on top of very good decisions.
Well, and we know this too. The less emotional the games are, the more that they are won after an hour versus winning them at 90+4, the easier the season is, despite the fixture congestion. And I have to say, this run of clean sheets is absolutely remarkable. But it has also meant that the games are relatively low stress and intensity for a big portion of the game, Paul, you know?
Yeah. Like, one of the thoughts as you're talking there, the start of this game was a bit messy and a little bit of chaos. But where was it?
They all have been recently, if I'm honest.
Yeah. But where was the mess and the chaos? It was over in the left-hand corner where we had lots of players. It was like, and it was a little bit us giving the ball away. But in the places we were all right giving the ball away. And we got ourselves sorted out, and then we started playing.
Yeah.
It's like, even when we're a bit messy, as you would be when you go to Prague midweek and you've just played a game, we don't play in the areas of the pitch where if it's a little messy, you get yourself in trouble.
Yep. A couple of things to note real quick. We are joint top of the table with Bayern. I guess they're top on goals for, but we both have a plus 11 goal difference. We're the only team in the Champions League that has not conceded a goal yet. Here's a stat for you. If you want to go back to history, 8 clean sheets in a row for the first time since 1903. Not a lot of things you can do that are unique in over 120 years, but we've done that. And yeah, I mean, this is a game that I think felt very comfortable in the end, but Clive, there were some tactical innovations here, and you're our tactics guru. So do you want to spend a little time talking about what a lot of people have noticed, which was this innovation of bringing Saliba more into the midfield, and how we adjusted for what was a man-to-man pressing system from Slavia Prague and a very physical Slavia Prague led by what can only be described as a gladiator up front. I don't know if he's a striker. Chori, I guess was his name. A giant battering ram is literally the only thing I can think of. Tried to get into Hincapie's head, and Gabby and Hincapie are having none of it. I love that. But yeah, tactical innovations for this game.
Yeah, so let's start with the selection first of all. The selection of Hincapie, which I think has shown a level of growth and maturity in the manager. So previous times when we've had players out, we've always stuck to a hierarchy, even if that player may not have been the best player, but he was next in line, so we stuck to the hierarchy. For many people, the second left back is Miles Lewis-Kelly, but Miles Lewis-Kelly is not the tallest fullback. And the first phase of this game was always going to be a defensive, messy game with no football. And I say that I've listened to the manager because I didn't know that beforehand. I knew they played a back three. I knew they were quite direct. I knew they went up against Bodo Glimt and ran out of steam late on. So I knew it was going to be, well, I didn't know. I suspected they were going to have a good moment. But I didn't expect their physicality. I didn't expect their size. I didn't expect their intensity and aggression in that first phase. But you know what? I'm glad the laptop boys at Arsenal did know exactly what they were doing. And they selected, I call them the car park defence, the 4 best defenders that we have in the club that will want to fight. And they picked them. And they didn't care about hierarchy. They cared about getting a result. And once we saw off that period, we then could play. And I thought it was brilliant what we did play. Now, coming on to the Saliba thing, I'm not I didn't, like anybody, we walk away with things from a game, and I was much more interested in the left back thing, if I'm honest with you, and what we did there and how that manifested. But I also have been sort of aware of Christian Norgard's sort of strengths and weaknesses.
Yep, I was going to ask you about that.
Part of his weaknesses for me is ball progression, right? So he's what I call an off-the-ball six. He's the, for those people of an older vintage, he's a Nobby Styles number 6, right? The number 6 used to be the guy that used to protect the defence. The best tackler used to be in front of the back four. And he's a really good tackler. So he wants a game in front of him so he can go and get the ball, get it, give it. And he's really good at that. And as the game went on, he got better at doing that. But if you want to play through him and flow through him, that's not his thing. So the best thing to do in this game, because they have 2 4s, they were switching from side to side, is keep your left back as an outside centre back and take your centre back into midfield. And our centre back on the right hand side just happens to be one of the best ball progressors we have in the club. And so again, smart. It's really smart. They've seen what Norgard is good at. And you, as a coach, your job is to make a player feel comfortable. So take away some of the attributes from him from a ball progression point of view, and give that to Rice and give that to Saliba. But also, you go and protect us and go and get the ball and create mini transitions for us. So he's thinking, I can play my A game, while other people are going to take part of the job, which I struggle with. Wonderful. As a player, you just love that coach. You love him that he's seen you straight away within a few minutes. He's just seen you and he's put you in a position to succeed. Everything that you want. Now, other people may have got something else from the Saliba thing, Elliot, and that's fine. It's absolutely fine. And everyone's gone straight to John Stones. I actually think if we ever were to play Calafiori as left centre back, then you'd see what John Stones could be because he would be everywhere, right? So, and so I think that's our greater sort of comp to John Stones. But I just thought it was just Saliba pushing in there to help us with our ball progression, and I thought it was a smart use of resources to help affect the game in a positive way, and maybe just cover some of the weaknesses in Norgard's game while allowing him to succeed in that position.
Yeah, I think that's well explained. And since you mentioned Nkapia, I'll mention the other fullback just briefly, which is Jurgen Timber, great again. I was a little surprised not to see Ben White get this game. And I'll admit, because I'm a worrier, you know me by now, don't hate me for it, but it made me wonder where he is physically or where he is just in the trust factor for a game that Mikel expected to be physical, because there's going to come a point in this season, most likely, where we need Ben White. And you want to get him up to speed and keep him involved. And he did, of course, come on and play. And thankfully did not give away a penalty. It was never a penalty, so thankfully that was waved away. But I kind of expected that he would get this game, and he didn't. And that's fine, no drama, but it just sort of makes me wonder how Mikel's thinking about his preparedness, his readiness. I really loved the way we managed our way through a game with big physical players. And Mikel, on the performance, he said, I'm really happy with the win, 4 in a row without conceding a goal. But then he said the interesting part, quote, a really tough place to come. I told the boys the game that we had to expect, a team that is super intense, very direct, man to man. So very short sequences of play, a lot of fouls, a lot of restarts, very difficult to get any fluency in the match. But if we were patient and emotionally controlled, we were going to have our chance, and the way they set up, and we did that. I think the margin at the end looked comfortable, but I don't think it was a comfortable match at all. Not only the win, but the fact that we had some players that haven't played much, playing and performing really well. And, I think back to the Porto game that I had the great pleasure of being at because of the friendships, less of a pleasure being at because of the spectacle. Another game with a lot of fouls, a lot of stoppages, and how I don't think we managed that game well. And now you fast forward to a similar type of game, and you see us manage our way through it beautifully, especially with a rotated squad. Paul, rather than going chronologically through the game, let's just get to one of the big talking points, and that's Mikel Merino.
Yeah.
I'll give you the Arteta quotes in a moment, but you and I see Mikel Merino differently, and that's fine. I think everybody, he's a bit of a Rorschach test. I think people see what they want to see in the player. But whether you see him as this or that or one thing or the other, what everybody sees is that he has become someone who is incredibly adept at doing the critical thing right on the edge of or inside of the box. And the way he takes his goal is absolutely sensational. Declan Rice drives through the midfield beautifully. Leo Trossard, who again is nothing but end product game in, game out, puts the ball on his foot and he makes that finish look natural. He gambles on the beautiful Rice chip to get his second goal, puts his head where it could hurt, heads it brilliantly. The keeper makes a huge mistake, but you got to credit his instincts there. And Paulie, we have found something, and whatever you think of the player, anybody who can score goals with consistency is going to be as valuable as they come in football. So how do you evaluate Arsenal playing with Merino at 9 versus Merino's ability to provide end product at 9? Because I think those are two slightly different things.
Yes. And I think listeners will sense that you and I do not stand on the same spot, staring at the same mountain that is Mikel Merino.
We do not.
I feel I stand on the other side of that mountain. I see a different mountain to you, even though it's the same mountain, which is that's the thing. So
I admire its peak. It may be other aspects of the mountain. The journey to the peak I may not enjoy as much, but we both love the summit. Let's just
I love a good meander up the sides of the mountain.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'd say if we want to look at in this game, his touch map is kind of fascinating. And you could say it's good or bad, but man, is he the falsest of nines. His touch map is literally all over the pitch, deep on the left, deep on the right, all across midfield, and in the attacking third, but not really the box until you get deep into the box. So, like, you can just picture him. He's dropping in, he's connecting the play. I think the one, what's your, you have a phrase, Clive, I heard you say in recent times, something about you want 1-2 players to run in behind, one to drop in. And in this game, we kind of had 3 players whose tendency is to drop in a bit. Saka a bit, like he'll run in behind a bit, but he ain't Martinelli looking for that run every time. Trossard's dropping in to connect things. Merino's completely dropping in. That's his thing. Apart from when we're on the counter, and there's no point in dropping in, really. And the one comment I'd make on the goal, well, I'll make 2 comments on his goal where he's playing full-on striker and Trossard spins that ball in, an absolute peach of a ball to Merino, is I thought Merino didn't check for the offside. I thought he got lucky, but actually, it might have been my video, not having the pixelate. He checks twice really quickly over his shoulder to know that centre back behind him has him onside. He's clever, he's aware. And the other thing I'd say is the quality of the touch, but his surety. Like, you see this with him time and time again when he shoots in the box or around the box and he hits that quality shot. He peels off to celebrate. Like, he may not be throwing his arms in his head, but you can see he already knows upon contact, maybe before contact, that he's caught it just right. That guy has quality in his boots, and it's not just for finishing. I think his quality passes, and he's a quality midfielder, though we don't play him on the left in a team in which he has, when do we call upon Mikel Merino? When we're running out of players, we're missing Odegaard, we need somebody to fill in on the right, we're missing a striker. I don't think we've yet seen him set up in midfield to play his game as a left 8, really, with a strong team around him. And that I would like to see to address some of your other concerns that I sense you may have, Elliot, around his midfield playing. And I definitely rate his midfield playing more than you, but I also recognize if you give him too much work to do, if you ask him to be a 10, he's not a 10. So you're beating a plumber for not being an electrician. I'd like to see him as a left 8 in a good team with a good winger, with a Odegaard, with Rice Zupermendi behind him. He's never really had that as the left 8. But Clive, what's your saying on because we didn't have it. We didn't have the guy who runs in behind so that Merino could drop in and pop balls, especially onto the left-hand side where he's naturally curving around the right place.
I have a couple of sayings.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have one player dropping, one player goes in. That's on the piston. On the piston, you get in behind. Yeah. If you have,
but when I say it, everyone rolls their eyes. See, it's just so unfair. I think I don't know what it means, but
I think just to layer on, because I think if you think back to last year when Merino played as a centre forward, the real centre forward becomes Bukayo Saka, really. Think back to the games when he gets the ball. And in this game, his shot count in this game was really, really high. So he takes on a lot more attacking responsibility rather than build-up responsibility. So when I see Merino playing there, and Paul, you sort of said it, but I just put a phrase around it. I think it's almost like a four diamond. It's almost like a diamond shape. We play a diamond in the center, almost. I'm summarizing there, and it's a 2, But and Trossard and Saka's average position would be a lot higher than Merino's, and I look at that and see, okay, we're controlling the middle. We want Merino to be high, so when we want to kick from our goalkeeper, he can be that guy to help it on. So what he does, he goes to one side, normally Saka's side, to help it to him. So when he wins a header, it goes to Saka. Now we've got one-on-ones. But then when we get settled attacks, we got to make sure that we get him near the box. When he's near the box, no one can tell him what to do because he's brilliant. But if we are going to get pushed back, he becomes dead because he can't run in behind, right? So it's really incumbent upon us to build up really, really well and squeeze our lineup high, because then get him closer to the box. When he's closer to the box, we all say to ourselves, well, he's playing like a striker. Well, around the box, he is a striker. And that's his thing. On the halfway line, he's a flick-on merchant that can't run in behind. And then we're all pining for Havertz and Gyökeres. Do you see what I mean? Because where you play on the pitch. So I think he's smart for the manager again. He just gets it. He fights them in the first phase, and then second phase, let's control it. Let's get after it. Let's push them back. When we push them back, then our forward becomes a forward. Do you see what I mean? In the meantime, he becomes another midfielder to help us control the duels and control the battle. So it's just a smart use of resources. I still prefer to have my running centre forwards, because I think they provide a direction, and then we're just more comfortable with them. But in the meantime, I think he's a fantastic footballer of high intelligence and high technique and timing.
Amen.
That surprises me every time. It really does.
And this is a new innovation in his game. I mean, it's not like he was a goal scorer to start with. If you want to hear all the stats, they covered him on the Arscast. But basically, he's got more goals in the last 6 months than he had in the prior 3 years. So it's just a complete revelation with him. And on Mikel Merino, Mikel Arteta said, it's a joy to have him. I always say the same thing. It's his versatility on the pitch, the things he can do. It's his mindset. It's his leadership. It's the way he is as a person. Today, we are missing a lot of attacking players, and we have to find different solutions. He comes in the Champions League and scores 2 goals. He spoke more about Mikel Merino on what's changed for his goal-scoring prowess. My view was always that he had a really good timing and capacity to finish in the box. This is Mikel Arteta speaking, especially one touch. And then talking to him and making sure that he plays closer to the box. And he identifies the opportunities, the timing, the way he needs to attack the spaces in relation to how they defend the box, which today was a bit different as well, the way they set up. And then it's obviously his quality, his willingness to learn and practice every day. It's one of those things that you can analyze a player differently and see their strengths slightly differently. But there is nothing in a low-scoring sport that matters more than creating goals or scoring goals. And in Leo Trossard and Mikel Merino, we have 2 players that do those things. And whatever your appraisal is of the other things they're doing on the pitch, there will never be anything you do on the pitch as important as those things. So it just is what it is. I will mention, by the way, I don't think it's a talking point particularly. This ref was horrible. And it was a game where the ref just felt very out of his depth. And I think that made for a really weird game in terms of the way we had to manage it and the way we were playing different sections of the game. They had a lot more fouls, but we had more yellow cards. So we had 4 yellow cards to their 3. But in terms of fouls, they committed 24 to our 12. So, a little bit of a weird one. Obviously, gave the terrible penalty at the end that VAR correctly ruled out. Clive, there was the penalty that was given. And I have to say, kudos to the referee in the Liverpool-Real Madrid game, because it was almost one of your typical European handballs given. It was a shot struck hard outside the box, right on the edge of the box. The player's twisting and turning, trying to get away from it, hits his arm, and they send him to the monitor, and he does not give the penalty. And I thought that was great. This penalty that was given against us, I will admit, or given for us, I admit it's not a penalty I necessarily want to see, but I do think if you put your hand up by your ear, you're just a dummy. Right? Now, do I want to see that given as a penalty? No, I don't think I do, but I don't know why his hand is there. But more importantly, Clive, Bukayo Saka steps up, and his penalty taking this season has been sensational. Now, we don't have to do a big section on it, but something has changed because he used to just pick a side and sort of hope. Now he is finding corners, he is finding side netting, and he is doing it with power. It's a brilliantly struck penalty. And I wonder if you think that he's trying to make the point, I'm not giving up penalty duties when this guy Gyökeres is back, because he's looking really good at it.
Yeah, maybe. You never know, Elliot. Maybe he's an elite sportsman that practices. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
But they don't always get better at it, to be fair. I mean,
Yeah. If you had the moment he's had, I bet you practice all the time. You don't want to go back
Good
there
point.
again, And so on the penalty itself, I sort of posted out something, and I've got to be consistent in my beliefs. I mean, you and Scott have taught me how much a percentage chance a free shot at goal is. And I like to see incidents that happen in a game, match giving you that chance to score a goal in a low-scoring sport. I didn't see the penalty, and I didn't see any Arsenal players appealing for the penalty. They were appealing for the corner.
No.
Now, you could say VAR stopped a header going towards the target, and so you could say, you know what, maybe that's the type of penalty you should be giving with your hand up in the air like that, and it's going towards a goal, right? So, personally, I'm not so comfortable with that. I wasn't comfortable with the Liverpool penalty neither. I felt it was someone diving in. His arms were pretty close to his body. If you want to give it, you can. But they chose not to, and I'm pleased about that. Right? I don't want to see 8% chances to come out of nowhere for an incidental event, which is not good. If it's going towards the target, it's going towards the goal, you've made your body bigger, mate, you deserve what you're getting. Do you see what I mean? But I think it's too innocuous to me, and we've got to be consistent. I don't want to see course of events and history changing. When this, history events changing because of a law that gives somebody an unfair advantage for me. I mean, I'm not here to defend Spurs, but they lost the European Cup because of a handball, which you could debate, and so I think it's too important. I genuinely think it's too important. Now, on that one, I was pretty comfortable with. But, if I was a Spurs fan, I wouldn't be so comfortable with it. And it's got to be consistent, right? So
slow your roll here, Clive.
Hey, look, I know what I'm doing, right? So basically, but we're football people. I didn't remember the Inter Milan one, Merino. I think it's Merino. Somebody gave a penalty away in Inter Milan out of nowhere.
Yeah, typical European handball. No one called for it. Game
ends
1-0.
We lose the game. It's like, hold on, what are we doing here? So this is the football thing. I want to be consistent and say I think penalties need to be earned much more. I really do. And this week, though, there was a couple of fouls and things that were turned around, which I actually quite enjoyed. I think there was another one. I can't quite remember now. Player run through, but the player initiated the contact, clash of legs, and rather than just give it, they turned it around, and the referees were okay with it. I quite like that aspect to it, right? So, but VAR's a whole other conversation. I don't want to go down it again, but I just don't want to see penalties given for just such small incidents, really. I don't agree with it.
Yep, yeah. Well, I'll stay with you for a minute, Clive, because next on the list of things I want to talk about is just what we're seeing with Declan Rice. And it's funny because the more extraordinary performances he puts together, the more I want Mikel to just wrap him in cotton wool. I mean, it's like this guy is just at an incredible level. And you look at what he did in this game again, and I think he's evolved with Odegaard out. I think something's changed a little bit here. And this is the thing that I'm really sort of catching on to with Declan Rice, is that he's taking more responsibility to do so many of the things that Odegaard did. I mean, we've seen Odegaard drop between center backs to pick up the ball. Well, Declan Rice was doing that in this game very clearly. Declan Rice led us in passes into the final third with 10, but he also created 5 chances. He takes the corners, he runs the ball up the pitch, he recovers the ball more than anybody else. And he had this one through ball in the game. I can't remember when it was. Let me see if I took a note on it. I did. Right on the hour mark. A stunning long ball, through ball, right up the pitch, through to Saka for a shot that was saved. And he did something similar against Burnley. And I'm wondering if you see his game evolving a little bit, almost to replace the Odegaard role in the wake of Odegaard's absence, because I think from a final third entry, touches, even creativity standpoint, it's all gone up a notch with Rice.
Yeah, so basically in this game, he didn't so much replace Odegaard, maybe he replaced a little bit of Zubimendi in this game, right? And so he took on a lot more ball-playing capabilities, and he's able to do it now because I remember when he played in the conference final for West Ham, and West Ham played him as a true Elliot-style six, mate. He did not move from that back four that day. They sent him out and said, can you make sure we don't lose this game? And he defended, protected, and in a very one-dimensional way, and won the game. Was very, very good, and great night for West Ham and for Rice himself as a captain, right? So, but he's doing so much more now with us. You think about the high 8 positions he was taking up last year. For me, my thoughts, Elliot, I felt he was high too early, too long, waiting for the ball. I don't think that's the best way of using him. I think when he came back from Dubai the first time and he started taking set pieces, that was another thing for him. That led to the free kicks. You all know what happened there. His ball striking is out of this world. The way he receives it now on the half turn, not Norgard closed body, but on the half turn, onto the back foot, left foot, flowing through him. When he loses his picture, he's got a way of dribbling out of pressure. Even when there's no pressure, he just changes the angle to create a running lane for him. When he's running, good luck in trying to catch him. We all know his moves now. He can switch it. He can do everything. He can do absolutely everything now. And I think the key for him, is he feels confident in his technical ability within the group. He's got a role which leans into technical ability. He sees things and creates momentums and stocks momentums. But the key thing for me is his starting position. And so when I got really excited this season, this pre-season Bilbao game, first half, that's when I saw the new Arsenal appearing, how we attack. And he dropped into the back line. He dropped out of it. But he was definitely working in conjunction with Zubimendi. And I saw it for the first time into our back four. And I thought, well, you can now see the whole pitch. And from there, you can do a lot more than waiting for someone to give you the ball. You can now see the whole pitch. You can control games in your own way, depending on what the game's asking for you on that particular day. But the key is your starting position. And I'm not saying he's a lone six, but we all know he can do it. He's working in conjunction with somebody else. And something else one of our patrons and me were talking online actually about how Arsenal are working in pairs a lot more. I remember last season when Odegaard came out and we started to work in pairs. We sort of had Trossard and Havertz as a pair, remember? And we took out the third man in midfield, took out the pods of three, and it worked until it didn't, right? But now we're almost back to that again, right? So we have a centre-back pair, which you'll know about. We have Timber and Saka as a pair on the right-hand side. We have Calafiori and Trossard as a pair on the left. But the key difference is Zubimendi and Rice as a pair, and also Eze and Gyökeres as a pair. Split pair, but 1+1. And so we're now playing much more like this. So these units now are in twos rather than threes. And I think that partnership is everything. I'm talking about Rice and Zubimendi. Physically, technically, psychologically, it is so perfectly complementary. It really is. And I think he's bringing out a better side of Rice. I think he's bringing out things. He said, well, I have to do this now because the other guy can't do that. But I can do this. But they're getting closer together in their all-round, all-court ability. And I think it's beautiful to watch, right? And so now that's manifesting into his England sort of influence. He's now taking set pieces of England. He's taking more offensive control. So the English media are wondering what we've got. How's this happened? How's he developed? Maybe the manager might get some credit one day, but let's not worry about that right now till he wins. He needs to win, son. When you win, it'll all come your way. But I think his development has been significant. He's 26, and I'm looking forward to that new contract here. I don't know about you, mate, but we need to get it done, don't we?
Yeah, signed to Ting, definitely. I want to stay on the midfield for a minute, but let's just hit some brands before we run out of time and people accuse me of not telling them what brands to care about in their life and then that I let them down, because I will never let you down. So here are some brands. Okay. Paul.
Yeah.
Midfield. Just in terms of thinking of the dynamic, I think obviously Clive covered the Rice component of it really well. The other component of it is the continued evolution of Ethan Nwaneri learning the position in midfield, and Norgard finally getting fit and being able to contribute. He had a bit of a weird role because instead of the Zubimendi role, right, of being that first player and build up, Saliba was stepping into midfield. So the whole midfield shape was a little interesting. I'm not as interested in discussing Norgard's role particularly because I think he's going to be the Swiss Army knife who comes in when someone has to sit down and does whatever job he's given and will do it at a 6 out of 10 level because he's just a solid professional.
He's
the
a
Ethan one is
Swiss
more
Army knife with one blade.
with one blade. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's the opposite of a Swiss Army knife. Then he's a knife.
Yeah,
he's just a knife. But the Ethan thing is interesting because he continues to develop in midfield, and this is a big night for him, right? Getting a start in midfield in the Champions League as another chance to say to the manager, I'm learning this role. So how do you evaluate his contribution? He got 65 minutes, which I'm guessing was probably pretty close to the plan. But I think what's hard with a player like Ethan has the kind of talent where you kind of rate him on, did he do something extraordinary, right? Did he get it on his left foot and curl one in from 20 yards? Did he beat 3 men on a dribble and provide an assist? But even though that's how you might evaluate a player like that, sometimes midfield is about fitting into the group and not needing to stand out, but needing to just keep possession, keep it ticking over, press appropriately, cover back. So sometimes when a player like Ethan doesn't have a moment of precocious talent, where you're agog, you can think that the game passed him by. So I wonder how you think about that, him just fitting into midfield and taking another step in his development in that role.
Yes. So the one word that comes to mind with Ethan, one question, is that presence, right? Now it's a little bit to do with the position you play and what's been asked of you. Because his ability on the ball to carry, to dribble, is partly what separates him from normal mortals. And that's not that easy to just turn on. There's not many players even who have the talent who can choose their moments in the game where it's there for them. So he's definitely on a learning phase. And he may have a tendency to underwhelm a little bit, especially in the whirl of a game. So, I thought he was quite good in this. I wasn't. You and I had a chat about it on the instant reaction. I definitely think he could have done a bit more on the end producty bit. The final ball, there was a moment. He played a really nice ball to a Saka who was not actually running in behind at the time. Now, whose fault is that? I don't know. But he had a couple of moments, a shot, a pass here or there in the final action where it didn't come off. And I think that's one of those things that subtracts from your overall performance. I thought his overall performance was all right. I thought it was his midfielding on the right-hand side was decent. If he'd had a couple moments in the final third into the box, I think we'd see this performance very differently, and you can say, but he didn't. But if I'm the manager, how players make me feel on the ball in the game as we're playing our game, that they're doing what I'm looking for them to do. I thought this was a decent, solid game for him, unremarkable. And how we look at it and say, he didn't really impress. The manager may feel different. It's your lived experience as a manager on the sidelines. How are these players making you feel? I think Norgaard's the same. I think Arteta may be happier with Norgaard than perhaps you were in watching him, because the vibe he was looking for from him, he had a couple of clever passes. He was solid. And, Saliba did a thing and Rice did a thing in terms of forming a passing hub. I thought Norgaard was quite good. It was a much better performance than I've seen. I think the manager may just be happier with these performances, that they're giving him what he wants in terms of a kind of a level of play within the team. So I thought it was unremarkable from Ethan, but I've seen other unremarkable performances from him that I didn't like nearly as much, because I didn't think he had the midfield presence and do the things, and he kind of disappeared. I don't think he disappeared in this. He just didn't have the moments.
No, and I mean, the irony is, and I love Ebrecht Eze, but Ebrecht Eze came on, played 25 minutes and touched the ball 6 times.
Yeah.
6. He touched the ball 6 times. He
wasn't
contested
necessarily
no
the game state that you'd bring as on normally. We weren't actually looking to razzle dazzle.
No, I know. It's just a point that
I agree.
He made 3 passes. He took no shots. He created no chances. He competed in no duels, and he had 6 touches. So it's
maybe that's what the manager wanted from him.
Just go out there and get a few sprints. He didn't do much of that either. Clive, that I don't think we need much of that. But I will simply say that, and we've got a long form
on Ethan.
Okay, well, I was going to say we're going to long form podcast on Odegaard coming during the international break that I hope you'll listen to, because he's going to be coming back soon, and we're going to deep dive on him. But watching other players play that role is very interesting. It's more Rice playing it than anyone else. As much as I adore him and think he can do brilliantly in the Leo role, hasn't super impressed me in the 8/10 role. I think it's a tricky dynamic there. But you want to add on that on Ethan, on the midfield dynamic, on Eze's 6 touches?
Yeah. So when I'm assessing Ethan now, I'm assessing the things that I know he needs to work on. Right. So on the ball, when ball comes to his feet, I don't think many of us has got too many complaints. Right. He can carry, he can dribble, he can switch it, he can shoot both feet. We know he can cross it. So we know on the ball is absolutely fine. So if you're looking at him from a player development point of view, if he's going to be an interior player, his development is off the ball. And so from the moment he's selected in this game, in this environment, with all of those beards running around out there, ferocious players looking to kick you to death, we're in a battle. His game, he's now been trusted. Now, you could say if Odegaard was fit, he would have played, etc. But he's been trusted. He's one of the younger players that have been trusted to start. So you've got to hold your end up, mate, off the ball. Because we're going to be off it in the first phase of this game. And you've got to be part of that collective. So you've got to shadow mark, you've got to press, you've got to move, you've got to put challenges in, put duels in. And I thought he did fine. I did fine in that respect. Now, if you want to close your eyes and think back to when he's sticking it in Bolton's net or Preston's net, was it last year, and all the goals he
Manchester
scored.
City's net.
And the last game against Brighton, he had how many shots did he have? 5 or 6 shots in the last game against Brighton. From a shooting perspective and output perspective in the last third, that wasn't so fine. But I'm buzzing for him, because you need to do that, mate. You're not going to play for Mikel Arteta unless you can do that off the ball game. So that game was a huge game of trust. Yeah. In a hostile environment, in a part of Europe, away from home, not the Emirates when the grass is perfect, so you can just clip it around the corner without even looking. This is a major moment for an 18-year-old, and I think he done brilliant in that regard. I was less happy. I tell you, I said it on the IR. First half against Brighton, mate. I saw walking. I saw things like that. Second half, rocket up his backside, and he had about 1 million shots in the second half. It was really, really good. That stuff bothers me, because you can't do that. You can, but you won't be playing for Arsenal if you do that. Honestly, you can do it. Honestly, mate, walk about. You can pick your moments when to press. You can do that. Absolutely, you do that if you want to, and don't think that people are not going to notice. And then when it comes to trust you again in the way in Europe, they're not going to trust you. So I thought it's a big day for him. Where
Clive,
this leads,
you can say it's body language, the kind of walking thing, because he does jog, but like Arteta's big on the body. It's not just us who would talk about body language. Arteta's all about what you transmit, and I see what you're talking about.
Very much so. Very much so. So it's not the sort of thing I would say unless I've seen the game live. And I saw the game live and I was watching. And it may not have been on TV. And that's okay. That's my interpretation. He might have been tired. He's not playing every minute. Do you see what I mean? And he might have just been waiting for his second win. But I just felt there was a bit of that around. But mate, after half time it got fixed. In this game now, it's not as if it cost him anything. He got picked for this game when other young players didn't get picked. And he was out there doing the business. And I was really impressed. Now, where that leads, Elliot, I don't know. I generally don't know. But I'm glad he was trusted. And not many people, not many teams are giving 18-year-olds in the centre mid that level of responsibility and accountability. I can't think of many that are doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember, it's not that long ago we were losing away at Lens, right? And struggling in a way European matches, not just in the Champions League, but sometimes even in the Europa League. And now we're going away to Slavia Prague and comfortably with a low incident match, dispatching of a team on their pitch with an 18-year-old in the heart of our midfield. And so I think Ethan may suffer from the fact that he came into the team at right wing and showed that he can get the ball on his left foot and score from anywhere. And you might say, how do you suffer from that? I think you suffer from that because he has that top of the game, go to the stratosphere talent, but this position requires different things developmentally. And if this were Arsene Wenger, I think he'd still be playing on the wing. Arsene played Aaron Ramsey on the wing for a while, right? Like we developed players by sending them out on the wing where the game was easier. It was easier to see. It was easier to focus on the few things you had to know. Mikel Arteta's given Ethan the I would say the respect to play him in the harder position. And what that's done, Clive, we'll stay with you for a second here, is it's opened up a door for Max Dowman. And that's probably part of the thinking too. And Max Dowman becomes the youngest player ever to play in the Champions League at 15 years, 300 and some odd days. He turned 16 in December. I think December 31st or something exciting like that.
Yep.
But Max Dowman comes on. And you know what jumps out to me about Max Dowman is the physical capacity to compete at this level. And Mikel spoke about that quickly, so I'll just give you this. On his Champions League debut, what he's done on the pitch is that he comes in, the first ball he takes people on, he starts to dribble and gets a foul. That's personality, that's courage that you cannot teach. You have it or you don't, and it doesn't matter what his passport says. You throw him in this context, and he's ready to adapt and have a good performance, so I'm really happy with that. And you may ultimately wind up judging this guy on how many shots he gets and dribbles he completes and things like that, but I will point out that he was 4 of 6, I believe. Let me just confirm that I am correct on that so people don't yell at me. He was 4 of 6 in ground duels won against a very big physical side. And at 15 to come in and play against men like that and do that, I think that stands out. So a big moment in Max Dowman's development, but to Mikel's point, Clive, he just looks like he fits at this level,
Many, many years. And
I've got lots of challenges
sure.
as a podcaster, Clive. It's got nothing to do with Max Dowman, but please carry on.
How many times can we say? How many superlatives can we find? Because he's just shocking on the eye. It shouldn't be happening. He does this stuff is like, when you see it. When you see it, everyone can see it. You're not alone. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to everyone. Your eyes just tell you. You can pick out whatever. Fine. For me, he plays the game in the future. His intelligence is off the charts. He shouldn't have that level of brain at his age because you learn things through experience. What experience has he had to know what he knows? I don't know, right? He's coming through. I just don't know how he does it, right? So and his balance is shockingly good, right? So his balance makes him look physical because he can change direction. So speed, endurance, speed, agility. He has speed, agility, and endurance. He can go the distances, but he can cut the angles as well. And he's still growing, right? So his physical potential is not done. He plays a game in the future. I mean, I'm going to run out of words soon. It's just basically just once in a lifetime stuff, mate. For me, I've said it's the best young player I've seen in my life. And let's see where he ends up. It could be something we're all going to remember for a long time.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, I feel like he does something that I think is unique for a left-footed winger, where you see, especially at a young age, they were always looking to cut in on their strong foot. He's very comfortable going touchline, right? Killing a guy by a dummy or rolling to the touchline. He had one moment in this game where I thought he had just put it out for a throw, but somehow it stayed in. He ran outside the touchline, came back in to get it, then was surrounded by 3 players, so it didn't come to anything. But it's just, he feels very comfortable to me going either direction. And that's something that I feel like develops later. And I'm curious if you think that he's got a nice instinct for using both feet and going towards the byline, to the touchline, not just always looking to cut inside on his strong foot.
Yeah, the guy's got the lot, Elliot, I'm afraid. Nothing to say. There's a picture of him probably about 2 years ago when he curled one in the top corner of his right foot, the edge of the area. Like it was his strong foot. One of the first times I noticed him, and it's like, oh, God. And he's got the lot. He won't be a winger forever, but that's okay. He's 15. So what do you do with 15-year-olds? You put them on the outside of the pitch where they've got a touch line to help protect them, and the position's easier. You can get a bit of your 360 is not required yet, although he's got it already. At youth football, he plays much more in the middle of the pitch on occasions, and he does what he likes, right? So yeah, I'd love to know what his positional development is. I'm sure his parents know, and I'm sure he knows, and what the plan is for him. He's playing England under 19s at the moment as a 15-year-old, which is unheard of. And who knows where he's going to be in a couple of years' time. So maybe next year it might be in the under 21s. Who knows? I mean, it's just incredible what's happening here. And Just got to watch it develop, right? And try to find new words to describe it as it does develop.
And avoid doing the thing where if he's not a superstar by 17, he's already past it, because I think we're starting to lose context with some of these bright young players in the game. I think a little of that has even happened with Ethan, where the impatience for players to be stars at a young age is distorting our understanding of development. And then you see players like Viktor Gyökeres, who only become a star in his mid to late 20s. And you see players who develop their game much later.
Yeah.
And we are, Clive, we're heading into sort of a dangerous territory with young players where they become superstars at 17 and has-beens by 19. We don't give them any kind of trajectory for development.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the Yamal story. Obviously, he's had a fantastic start to his career. But I find myself watching him. When he does something bad, I think, well, what's happening there? Is he falling off? And then, of course, he goes past two people and slots in the bottom corner. You think, oh, he's still there. And that word you use, patience, is a really important one. And that's why it made me think about that. Patience and not expectations being sensible. Who knows what's happening to a young man that's still growing and still developing and still trying to manage the changes in his life, which will be on and off the pitch. There's going to be down periods, and how are we going to be when that happens? I think it's just important to be patient. I think the manager's doing a fantastic job, and the first team players are putting their arms around him, and I just think it's great. Long may it continue.
Yeah, and we should, just before we move on from this game, give a bit of a pat on the back to André Harriman-Annous as well, who got on the pitch, got a chance to play in the Champions League, and I think it's really interesting with Mikel Arteta, because I don't know if André Harriman-Annous' future is at Arsenal. It may be. It may not be. But Mikel Arteta very clearly wants to show players who do things the right way, who train the right way, who prepare the right way, that there's a path for them. And we need a striker. And instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to bring a defender on and play him up front or something, he picks the academy kid and he gives him a Champions League debut. And that is a life moment for André Harriman-Annous. And again, like I said, he may go on to be a star for Arsenal. I don't know. It's far too early to say, to the point we were just making about having patience. But I think Mikel Arteta doing that is sort of part of our philosophy around how the club is operated and how you reward the people that do the right thing. So it's nice to see that. Paul, let's move on and just look ahead to this weekend. Obviously, a pivotal moment in the season. You've got the international break coming up, and I think the presumption is that Gyökeres and Kai and Odegaard and Nani and all these players we've been without and Martinelli are going to be back for the Spurs game after the international break or thereabouts. So this is the moment we got to get through with these players missing on the weekend that City and Liverpool play each other on Sunday. And if we can beat Sunderland, they go into that game both knowing they probably need those 3 points, that becomes even more important, may even impact how they think about preparing for and approaching that game. So one of those critical weekends you're going to point to in this season as it goes along. I sometimes worry, you'll be surprised to hear, that we have gotten so in love with the depth of our squad and so in love with our ability and our capacity to get results without our best players that we've forgotten that football is still fundamentally about the talent of the players you put on the pitch. And we've got a lot of talent missing. So one more big game to get through. The Granit Xhaka derby, he's going to be up for it. The Stadium Light is going to be up for it. They're off to a fantastic start to their season. They did only draw against Everton on Monday, but that's a good side that is feeling themselves right now and will be excited to measure themselves in a game where they probably won't feel there's anything to lose. So how do you expect us to set up for this? And what are some of your early expectations for how we approach the match?
Well, I mean, I guess the good part of things is we're at a stage in the season where the team at this point kind of picks itself. So our options
once again.
Yeah.
Just play the fit players.
Yeah. Hello, darkness, my old friend. So, there's no, Zubimendi will be back in midfield. Rice, probably Eze. He'll be nicely rested from his appearance in the Champions League game. Trossard, Saka, Merino up top. We might be having a Merino conversation after this game about, win, lose, or draw. Probably win. How he played, had that worked for us. It is what it is at the moment. It seems we can get results, and it seems this team has a stability about its approach. I'm okay about it. I think we're going to do okay. I think we'll lean into the creativity of Calafiori. I think Merino's a smart guy who knows how to make space for other players. If we're looking for a player to run in behind, it could well be Calafiori in our attacking line, running through past our midfield and into the attacking third, streaking up the pitch to give us that joker card, and a very interesting juxtaposition of Rice versus Xhaka, playing the midfields, and Rice potentially, the Rice discussion. You're seeing interesting parallels with Odegaard, and I can see some of that. But what I'm really seeing this season is this thing that Arteta has leaned into in a big way, which is Rice and Calafiori finding their balance. That space on the left-hand side being a canvas for both of them to paint. And Rice, why is Rice dropping in here? Why is he doing this in this game versus that game? It's the space that Calafiori can find and the success he's having. And then you have the intelligence of Trossard on the left-hand side. And our whole left-hand side is a whole different discussion this season. And on the right-hand side, we don't have Odegaard. So on the right-hand side, Saka, and before him, Nani was 1v1, taking it to whoever the full-back was without lots of players around him. And it's kind of suited both players. Now it suits Saka to get 1v1. But the left-hand side is still evolving, still really interesting. And it's different every game. With, another player who adapts to the players around him, Zubimendi and Rice. There's just, I was fascinated by Clive's mentioning of the word pairs. And I'd love to think about it more and do more around that, because Gyökeres, I don't know if you saw that in a recent interview post-game, out of nowhere he said about, I think it was Gyökeres, said something about working in their pairs. And I'm like, what? What's this working in their pairs thing? So it's obviously Clive's onto something here. That
it was Declan Rice that said it. It was Declan Rice that said
okay.
it.
Yeah.
But we did this last year, and I was talking to one of the pages about it, and we did it for a while, and it really worked. And I actually think, well, what's the difference this year, Paul? Is our pairs have maybe upgraded a little bit, and so and I think they're more multifunctional and more all court. Yeah. So I think that's why it seems to be working well. But I know we haven't got.
And is there a phase of play pairs? Like, I see a pairing between Rice and Calafiori. I see a pairing between Rice and Zubimendi, for example,
exactly.
right?
Exactly, yeah. I think this is a really good point you've made. I think there are certain players that turn a pair into a three. So your free running players. So Calafiori is a nightmare, right? Because he can then join in and go somewhere else, and suddenly you've got an overload there by where he arrives at the space and the timing of when he arrives in certain spaces. Suddenly you got, rather than 2 versus 2, you got 3 versus 2. Now what are you going to do? You have to pass him on. Who's the other player that does that really, really well? It's Odegaard. He flows through different phases of the pitch, and he creates 2s into 3s and creates a 3 really, really quickly just by his movement. And I think this is an aspect of Arsenal which is unfounded yet. Everyone's looking at us from afar, looking at our goals against, looking at our set-piece execution. And
nobody's
I don't think
talking about this.
No one's realising about our tactical innovation on the left-hand side of the pitch, what we're doing with our fullbacks.
Arteta's new favourite toy, Clive. That's what I think Calafiori is.
Yeah, the Calafiori is one example. Timber's usage is incredible.
Yeah.
Zubimendi's obviously new for everyone. They're still working him out. Mate, when Odegaard comes back and layers on top of this, we're going to go again. We're going to go again. And it's like everyone thinks we're at this is what we're going to do. Is this sustainable? And we're Arsenal fans are saying, mate, this has only just started. This has only just started. The firepower is not here yet. And when it is here, we can start to share minutes and start to add more tactical layers to this group. We're off and running.
Let me ask you about this game specifically, Clive, because to me, there's 2 things I'm thinking. The midfield balance is still a work in progress a little bit. And like, as I mentioned, I think whoever's playing in that sort of nominal right 8 role is still figuring out how to work in those spaces. I don't think Eze's getting on the ball enough in the places he can hurt the opposition. And I'm not sure he's always in position, out of possession, to stop the counterattacks through the middle. There's a part of me that would like to see Merino, Rice, and Zubamendi in midfield for this game to really dominate that space and shut down the Granit Xhaka supply line, and then play Eze out left and Leo as the false 9. And obviously Merino can go and Leo can drop, and they can kind of swap around a little bit. And Eze can maybe affect the game in the places where I think he's uniquely talented. Once he gets the ball on the edge of the final third and can face the goal, everybody's terrified of him. But to me, the strategy here, aside from what we do what we do best, in terms of Sunderland, everything good they do is done with Granit Xhaka. He's going to be very up for this game. Obviously, an emotional reunion. I think the players love him. I think the manager loves him. I think he has great affection for Mikel Arteta. But you gotta shut down that supply line. I think that is where, if he gets a lot of touches and gets on the ball a lot, it's going to be trouble. Against good teams this season, Sunderland have had like 35% of the ball. They've not been a team in possession that has had a lot of the ball against the better teams. But no one's really been able to swamp them, to really overwhelm them. They've had some games where they weren't great, but they've done a pretty reasonable job. And I think Granit Xhaka is at the heart of everything good they do. So, Clive,
remember
is that
those times when we said Xhaka couldn't pass and he couldn't play from deep?
Well, to be fair, Xhaka was always an elite passer, as elite as they come. The issue, I think, with Granit Xhaka...
He said he had one pass, though.
Well, so the issue with Granit Xhaka that I've always felt, and I still feel this, and this is why I'm bringing it up, I think he is vulnerable to being pressed. I think he can be trapped. I think he's a good pressing trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of my question, Clive, is he the pressing trigger for us? Is that a strategy? And would you bring Mikel Merino maybe back into midfield to really crowd him out of the game? Because I think if he's out of the game, they lose their ability to get the ball to some dangerous forwards like Wilson Isidore.
Yeah, so I just looked at SofaScore, and they've got Trossard as a false 9. I thought it was quite interesting. We all know that front 6 is going to play, right? So where they're going to stand. So Trossard could play false 9. I think Eze could play false 9 and Trossard off the left. I think the key is they play a 5-4-1. I saw a little graphic today saying that Sunderland have one of the lowest defensive lines. So they play from a low base. That means we're going to be closer to their goal. When we're closer to their goal, all bets are off. It's all about who gets into that central area. So Merino could play the 10 in this game, but also almost be like the second striker and then arrive late into space. That may suit him, gives level of physicality in the middle of the pitch. If that works, it's absolutely fine. The forwards might end up being Eze and Saka, in this game. The ones that are first forward getting their shots off. I think the most important thing when you go to these places is to quieten the crowd. The 5:30 on a Saturday, mate, there'll be a few drinks flowing. That's going to be very, very loud. So you got to shut that lot up immediately, right? I watched the Everton game on Monday, and Everton had them stone cold and should have gone 2-0 up. Didn't go 2-0 up, and then Sunderland came back in late, and they end games very, very well. They've got a number of late goals, and I think, that's interesting. Obviously, I fear it, but I just want us to control the game, get the first couple of goals, and go from there. To do that, Elliot, your idea of playing Merino there might work for the first phase of the game. But I also see in Granit Xhaka, I don't want to dismiss him. When you see Granit Xhaka playing against the very, very best, the way to do it is to out-mobilise him. Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
Turning him to a spinning top, move him around,
Yep.
Get him to the edge of his physicality. When he's in control and he can see the game in front of him, he can pass as well as anybody in Europe. So you got to get him running side to side, stretching. We've seen it in the games against City when he played for us. That's when he gets sent off and cards, etc. Got to get him moving. Got to get him at his physical limit. So I would definitely overload the centre midfield. You're playing 4 anyway, 5-4-1. So we've got to make sure we're strong in there and then go from there.
Yeah, I'd man mark him. I know it's not what we do, but I would. I'd send Merino into midfield, and I'd say just follow Granit Xhaka around. He's a duel monster. He's going to be hard to get away from. I don't think Granit Xhaka will be able to escape him in the duels. And then that gets the ball to Eze, that gets the ball to Leo, that gets the ball to Saka.
I hope
us going.
Nobody brings out the old recordings of our Xhaka pods. They wouldn't have heard the words Elliot saying.
Man mark Xhaka.
Man mark him.
He's as good a midfielder on the ball as there is in Europe right now in terms of his passing capability. And I just want to say something. See, Paul went for the short game. Paul doesn't think expansive because he's like, we're playing against Granit Xhaka. I'll get my little licks in on Elliot here, a little mention of him undervalued. But what Paul doesn't realize is I have access to the whole back catalog. So this week on Arsenal Vision Podcast social media is just going to be supercuts of Paul praising Schroeder and Mustafi and Pablo Mari just all week. That's all it's going to be, just supercuts of those takes.
You might find one of Clive and Cedric in there explaining why it was a good decision to buy him as a multi-footed fullback.
So, yeah. You guys talking about Cedric, Pablo Mari, and Schroeder Mustafi all week. That's all it's going to be. See, so Paul, you played the short game.
Rattled Elliot.
I am. My head's on Mars, as the kids say. It's beyond Mars, on Venus, but Venus is nicer this time of year. Look, it's a game we should win, but like I said, I think we've gotten too comfortable with this idea of squad depth, where we're like, oh, whoever we put out can win a game. That's not how football works. Football is a strong link sport. It is about your best talent. So it needs to be a big Saka game. He's been managing his way through games. It needs to be a big Declan Rice game, right? It needs to be a big game for Eza to find a way to get on the ball in these small spaces that he excels at the top of the box. He did win us the game against Palace. Maybe he can get us going in this game. You know, I do think he was unlucky not to score early in the Newcastle game. He's been good at getting shots in dangerous positions when we find a way to get him the ball. We should prioritize getting him the ball in those positions. You know, that's sort of my thought there. So we'll see what happens. And do we expect surprises? Could there be a Kai Havertz or Nani Madueke on the bench? You know, maybe. I think Gyökeres will miss this game, but I think he's back for the North London derby. So let's put it this way. The season gets real serious after the international break. It's the derby, it's Bayern, it's Chelsea. This is the pivotal swing moment in the season that we need to execute on. We go first, City and Liverpool go second. We'll have an instant reaction after this game. Well, Friday Night Clive tomorrow, and we'll probably have a pod right after the City and Liverpool game as well, depending on whether it warrants it. So, Clive, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I said it first. And to the pod's resident Pablo Mari admirer, Paul, thank you for joining us.
You're so rattled. Woohoo!
I am rattled. I'm having a breakdown. Thank you guys for being a part of this nonsense. We love you very, very much. Big weekend ahead. More of a chance to climb the table. And let's think about our standards. They dropped a little in midweek. We did concede a shot on target. If we can get rid of that, I think we'll be back to our absolute best. We love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, 7-0.